Hello everyone, in today's video we are going to learn about Android Activity Lifecycle, and this is very important because if we implement Lifecycle properly inside our app we can avoid multiple issues. So let's start, and for those of you who don't know, this is going to be our fourth video in the series where we are learning about Android application development. So if you have not checked this video you can check out. We are going to use this code inside today's video where I will explain how we can use lifecycle methods, and I will demonstrate that if we don't use lifecycle method what issues we are going to face and how we can fix them with the help of proper lifecycle methods. Now let's start coding. So we are going to use the same project, and this is the same project which we implemented inside this video, and the GitHub link for this project is also added in the description. So now let's start our implementation related to life cycles. So this is the current state. What we are going to do is we are going to add one text view, this values text view, and what we are going to do is whenever we click on this login button we are going to take the values from these edit text and we are going to append inside this text view, and then I will show you why we need life cycles. So first let's quickly take the reference. We have taken the references here and we can just set the click listener for our button. So we can just take this and add this method click listeners. Now inside this we are going to find out the values from email and password text view. So we can just use this dot get text dot to string. Okay, and the same way we can take for this password. Let's print these values, and for that let's define one companion object and then one tag, and we can take the name of this activity and we can just add here dot simple name. Okay, then we can use this tag inside logs and we can just print inside click listener method, and then we can just print the email value, and same way we can print the password value for our debugging. These logs are for our debugging purpose. Now we need to set these value from edit text inside this text view. Basically we need to append this. Basically we want to append the values inside this text. So we can form one final string, maybe we can call it as result, and then we can create one string template, and inside this text view we have one default string. So first of all we need to take this value. We can just use this dollar symbol get string, and we need to take this string which we have added inside our text view. This is the same string. We are also using this inside our text view inside our XML here, and then we need to find out these values from the edit text and we need to append to this text. Okay, so we can just go inside one new line and we can use this email equal to, we can take this email value which we are taking from this edit text, and then in the next line we can take password value as well and we can access with the help of this dollar symbol. Okay, this is our final string. Then we can take access of our text view. We can do this apply, and inside this first of all we need to make this text as visible. So we can just do this visibility equal to view dot visible, because we are by default having this as visibility gone. So whenever we click on this and we have some valid value, then we need to make this as visible and we need to append the values here. Then we need to set the text. So we can just set this result, and now if we run our application and then we enter some value here, we enter some password as well, then if we click on this login button, so our text is appearing and all the values are coming here. Now here is the thing, as of now we are doing all the operations inside onCreate method. Okay, and if you go inside the manifest, our application is having one activity, main activity, this one, and this is not having any default orientation. Okay, so we can rotate our application and it will rotate. So if we click on this rotate left button, so edit text are having the values, but if we scroll it up we don't have that text view. This is because whenever we rotate our Android device, our activity gets destroyed and it gets created again. Okay, I will show you how it happens in code and how we can handle this, But for now, if you try to submit this again, you will see that text appeared. But if you rotate this again to portrait mode, you will see that text view is disappeared again. This is because again the activity is destroyed and created again. Now let's see what this means. This is one of the most common issue which user can face if we are not using Android lifecycle methods properly inside our activity. So these are the lifecycle methods of a activity, and we will cover this in a practical approach. We will not just go into completely theory and end this video. What we will do, we will just see what happens in each step whenever user interact with any application in different scenario, which lifecycle methods will be called. Okay, and then at the same time we will learn about that method. So to start with, let's consider one example. When user interact with the application icon, launcher icon inside his phone or her phone, and user launch the application. Okay, whenever user open the app, so the three methods will be called. First method will be onCreate, then onStart and onResume. Okay, so now let's go back to the code and let's try to add these methods. Okay, so we have onCreate already. We can override this onStart method. Then we can override this onResume method. Okay, now let's add one log in each of these methods. Alright, so the first thing we can do here, we can add one log statement. We can use the same tag which we have defined inside our companion object, and then we can just write inside onCreate. We can just copy this log and we can add inside onStart as well. We can take this log and we can add inside onResume as well. Okay, now let's run our application. So our application has launched, and inside our log cat we can add this main activity. Okay, it's there. So let me just clear this and let's relaunch our application again. So this is the application. So we can see that first of all onCreate method is called. So this onCreate method is the first step. So whenever our Android system create a object of this activity, OS will give us the callback inside onCreate method. Okay, so this method is basically used to initialize the activity. And for example, we are setting this layout file here, right? So this is the layout file for our activity. So whenever system create our activity, we get callback inside onCreate, and here we just set some layout for our activity. Okay, then the next method is onStart. So after our activity is created by our OS and we got callback inside this onCreate method, we come inside this onStart method, and inside this method what happens is, now OS is trying to prepare our activity to come in the foreground. Foreground means like application will be visible to the user. So our application will start preparing this screen to show to the user. Okay, so after onStart, our application will trigger this onResume function for this activity. This means now user can interact with this screen. User can enter some email, user can enter the password, and user can click on any button. Basically user can interact with the screen and our application can interact with the user. Vice versa, it can happen. Right now we are inside this onResume function and our screen is visible. We can click on any view, we can interact with the screen. Now the next thing is, if user press on this home button, if user click on this home button of our Android device, our application will go into the background. At that time, these two methods will be called. First of all, onPause will be called, then onStop will be called. Let's add these methods also inside our activity. So we can override this onPause method, and inside this we can just take this log and add it here. Then we can override this onStop method as well. We can add this log inside this method also. Okay, now let's run our application and we will do this step second. Okay, so our application is launched. We are in onResume. Now we are tapping on this home button. So two methods are called. First of all, onPause is called, and then onStop method is called. This onPause method is kind of an indicator that our Android OS gives us that hey, user is leaving your activity, but it does not mean your activity is destroyed. It is still there, but it is going away from the foreground. You can see that it's getting minimized or some other screen is coming on top. So this on pose will be called when you will feel like, okay, user is moving away from your screen. And immediately after this on pose, whenever any new screen comes up or any new application comes into the foreground, this onStop method will be called. This is the indication that OS is telling us that your application has entered the stopped state, okay? And basically this will happen most of the time whenever any new activity is launched. So previous activity will be in the onStop state, and at this moment of time any other activity or any other new application is visible in the foreground. So till now this is the summary. We launched our application, these three methods gets called. Then we press on the home button of our Android device. We send our application in the background. So these two methods are called on pause and on stop. So we are right now inside this on stop method and our application is in stopped state. Now if user goes back to that activity again, how user can go back? User can either click on this application icon and launch the application, or from the recent task user can go back to this screen. Okay, so that time this on restart method will be called, and then immediately after this on start and on resume method will be called. Let's keep this in background itself for now, and let's add the method on restart. Okay, let's add one log inside this method. Let's take this name, let's take here, and let's run our application again. Okay, so we are in on resume. Now we press on the home icon and we are inside stopped state. Okay, now if we try to launch our application again, or if we try to take this from the recent apps, we click here, so we can see that three methods are called. Okay, so what we did, we just went back to the activity, then immediately after this on restart, on start method will be called, and then on resume will be called, and now we are inside this on resume method. User can interact with the application again, our application is visible to the user again. Now next thing can be, if user press on this back button and then exit the application, that time these three methods will be called. We are here, our application is visible. Then if user is pressing on the back button and taking a exit from the application, then these three methods will be called. First on pause, then on stop, and after that on destroy will be called. Here our activity instance will be killed. Let's add the on destroy method as well inside our activity. Let's take this log and add in this method, change the name, and let's run our application, and we will cover this third scenario. Okay, so we are inside on resume. Now if we try to kill our application, we kill from the recent application. There is no app in the background as well. So you will see that on pause, on stop, and on destroy is called. There is no more instance for this activity. Now if you launch your application again, then it will start a fresh instance. It will start from the beginning. Now let's come back to where we started. So we was having one example where we was typing some values inside some edit text. Okay, and then we was rotating our application. So let's see what lifecycle methods are getting called here. If we rotate our application, so we can see that first on pause is called, then on stop is called, on destroy is called, then one new instance is created, on create, on start, and on resume. That's why we don't see those values, because those values was present in previous instance of this activity, which is destroyed, and after destroying the previous instance, our activity's new instance is created. It's like previous object of our activity was having those value from these edit text, but now that object is destroyed. Now we have a new object. So now the question is, when our application is rotating and the previous instance is getting destroyed and one new instance is getting created, so how we store these values entered by user? So whenever previous instance is destroyed and one new instance is getting created, we don't lose these values. We keep these values and we use in the new instance. So if you notice, we have something called bundle inside this on create function. So whenever OS is giving a callback that your activity is getting created, OS is giving us some bundle as well. Okay, so we need to store the data inside this bundle inside a method where our activity is getting destroyed. Okay, so we have something called on saved instance state, this method. So inside this method, inside this out state we need to put some values, whatever the values we want to store. So we have two values, string values. So we can use some value, maybe email, and we can pass this value of this edit text. So we can just take email dot text dot to string, and then we can put one another string password with the help of this password. Okay, so we have added one log as well inside this own save instance state method. Let's try to run our application. Let's enter some value, user@gmail.com, and then password 123456 7. Okay, we have some value. We are trying to click on this submit login button. Now we try to rotate our application. So these values printed when we clicked on the button. Then when we rotated our application, on pause is called, on stop is called, and before this on destroy, before our application instance was getting destroyed, one new method is getting called now, this on save instance state, and inside this we are putting few value inside a bundle, and then on create is getting called. So inside this on create, OS gives us a bundle. So if we kept some value inside the bundle, which we did here inside our own save instance state, OS will return us these value inside our own create method. We was keeping the final result inside a variable. So let's take this variable and make one global variable for this result. We can define one late init var result of string type. Okay, and then we are assigning this result here. Now let's store this result as well inside this own saved instance state. We can just use this result. So this way we are keeping this result final formed string as well inside this own saved instance state bundle, and we will get this bundle inside our own create, this one. Now what we can do inside this own create, we can just add some check. Okay, we can just check that this saved instance state, which is this bundle, so we can add a check that if this saved instance state is not equal to null, okay, then we can do something here. We can optimize this condition like this as well with the help of this scope function. We will come inside this if this bundle is not null. Then let's minimize everything and let's open only these two functions, saved instance in state and inside this own create. So we have kept this result with this result string. So we can just use this it.getString, and we can take the value of this result. If this value is not null, we can just assign the value to this variable. So what we did here is we just stored the result variable inside own saved instance state. We can remove these things also because we just want to use the formed string, the final result value, this one, which we was forming inside this button click. Okay, now we kept this inside this own saved instance state bundle. So whenever new activity instance will be created, OS will give us a callback inside this own create method, and here we will check if this bundle is not null. So we will try to find out the string which we kept. Okay, we will try to check this result variable. If this result variable has some value, if this result is null or empty, we can just keep this text view values visibility as gone. Else, if this result has some proper value which we kept inside this bundle here, if we are getting that value inside this, we can just make this text view visible, or we can just do the same thing. We can make this view as visible and we can set the value that is result. So we can create one new function for this. Basically this is, so we can check for saved value in bundle. We can create one function, and inside this function we can pass the bundle, basically which bundle we are getting here, this one. We can add this as a parameter, and then Here we are just checking it. If this result is null or empty, like we did not save anything, then we will not show this view, else we will show this text view value and we will set the result. So before we run our application, we can add a check that if result has one proper value, if result is null or empty, we will not do anything. We will just return, else we will save some value. Okay, now let's run our application. So our application is installed. Let's enter some value. We can enter the password as well. Now if we click on this login button, our values are coming here, and if we rotate our device as well, let me just resize this, and if we scroll our application, we can see that values are still there. If we rotate it again, we will see that values are still persisting. Now we are not losing any data, and if we go and check out the logs, so we'll find out that whenever activity instance is destroying, before that we are calling this on save instance state method, and inside our code you can check that in on save instance state we are saving this result inside the bundle, and then whenever we are getting one new instance created for our activity in on create, we are getting the data from the bundle. So we are just calling this method check for saved value, and inside this we are just getting the data from the bundle. If everything is good, we are just showing the values inside this text. So this way we can utilize lifecycle to avoid any data loss if user is rotating the device, and if we are allowing the user to do so, we can store the data in on save instance state, and then we can get inside the on create bundle here, and we can avoid so many bugs and so many issues if we are using the lifecycle methods properly. I have pushed the code at GitHub repo as well. You can check out from here as well. So that's it for the today's video, guys. I hope I shared something valuable with you today. And right now there are so many things happening in the channel. You can check out the source section and you will find out that I share one Kotlin concept daily at 5 p.m. I am sharing all these topics step by step in shorts, so you can check out these as well. And please subscribe to my channel. Right now there are 90% people who watches my video but they don't subscribe to it. Please subscribe to my channel so that it can reach out to multiple people, and I am trying my best to put out the best content I can, and I will keep doing that. Please share this video with your friends or family who are learning Android, and I will see you in the next video.